Change is a powerful thing. When I think about change, I think about something much deeper than just altering your routine or picking up a new hobby. I'm talking about changing the way you see the world, the way you interpret your experiences, the way you understand your own journey. And if you're going to really make progress in your life, if you're going to get anywhere meaningful, then one of the first places to begin is to change your perspective. Most people think that success comes from changing their circumstances, finding a new job, moving to a different city, maybe even getting around a new group of friends. And sure, all those things can make a difference. But if you haven't changed how you think, if you haven't adjusted the lens through which you see the world, those changes will only be temporary. You'll find yourself slipping back into old habits, stuck in the same old ruts, facing the same struggles. It all starts with perspective. Here's what I mean by that. Two people can be in the same situation, right? They can be handed the same set of circumstances, maybe the same opportunity or even the same obstacle. And yet, one person will rise while the other person stays stuck. Why is that? It's perspective. One person sees the challenge as a stepping stone. The other sees it as a stumbling block. One sees the opportunity as an exciting chance to grow. The other sees it as a risk, something to be afraid of. Have you heard the story of the two salesmen? Two shoe salesmen are sent to an island to sell shoes. After arriving, they both observe that no one on the island is wearing shoes. The first salesman is dejected. He sends a message back to the company. There's no market here. No one wears shoes. The second salesman, with a gleam in his eye, sends back an entirely different message. Huge market. Nobody has shoes yet. Same island, same situation. Two totally different perspectives. And that's how life is. You're going to face situations where everything will depend on how you choose to see it. And if you want to change your life, you've got to start by changing how you think about what's happening to you. It's not what happens to you that determines your future. It's what you do about it. It's how you interpret it, how you frame it, how you respond to it. Think about the person who constantly says, nothing ever goes right for me. Now, maybe things haven't gone well. Maybe they've faced some real difficulties. But with that mindset, guess what happens? They become a self-fulfilling prophecy. They've already determined that nothing's going to change. So they don't see the opportunities when they come. They don't recognize the small victories along the way. They don't take action because they've already decided that it's not going to work out. The problem isn't their circumstances. The problem is their perspective. Now, this may surprise you. Problems are a good thing. I'll say that again. Problems are a good thing. They're what make us grow. They force us to stretch, to think differently, to become resourceful. If you have the perspective that problems are nothing more than obstacles, roadblocks in your way, then every time you face one, you'll feel frustrated. You'll feel stuck. But if you can change your perspective and start seeing problems as opportunities for growth, everything changes. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. It takes work to change how you think, especially if you've spent years seeing things in a certain way. But here's the good news. You can do it. And you don't have to change everything all at once. Start with just one area of your life. Maybe it's your finances. Instead of seeing your financial challenges as burdens, start asking yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow through this experience? What opportunities might be hidden here that I haven't seen yet? It's like the old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Sometimes the teacher isn't a person. It's a challenge. It's an obstacle. It's life presenting you with an opportunity to learn something new, to develop a new skill, to cultivate a new mindset. So many people fear failure. They avoid it like the plague. They think that if they fail, it's a reflection of their worth, their value. But here's what I've learned. Failure is simply feedback. It's information. It's the world telling you, hey, this didn't work. Try something different. But if you're stuck in a negative perspective, you'll see failure as the end of the road instead of a detour. You've got to change the way you look at failure if you want to succeed. I remember reading about Thomas Edison and his process of inventing the light bulb. They say he failed thousands of times before he finally got it right. And when someone asked him about all those failures, do you know what he said? He said, I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Now that's perspective. Where most people would have given up after the first few failed attempts, Edison saw every failure as progress. He knew he was getting closer with each try, not further away. How do you handle failure? Do you let it stop you, or do you use it as a stepping stone? Your perspective on failure will determine how far you go. If you can learn to see it as a teacher, as a guide, you'll find that your setbacks are really just setups for your comebacks. But it's all about perspective. Another important thing to understand is that you have to be grateful for what you have. Being grateful is one of the most powerful ways to change your perspective. When you're focused on what's wrong, on what you don't have, on what's missing, you create a mindset of scarcity. You feel like there's never enough time, never enough money, never enough opportunities. But when you're grateful, when you focus on what you do have, on the things that are going right, something amazing happens. Your perspective shifts. Suddenly you begin to see abundance where before you saw lack. You start to notice opportunities where before you saw limitations. And I'm not just talking about being grateful for the big things, like promotions or winning the lottery. It's the little things that make the biggest difference. The fact that you have food to eat today, the fact that you have people in your life who care about you, the fact that you woke up this morning with the ability to make today better than yesterday. When you train your mind to focus on what you're grateful for, you're shifting your entire perspective. You're teaching yourself to see the good, even when life isn't perfect. And I'm telling you, life will never be perfect. But when you learn to find the good in every situation, you create a powerful shift in your mindset. You stop focusing on what you can't control and start focusing on what you can. One of the biggest places where perspective can make or break your happiness is in your relationships. How do you view the people in your life? Are they a source of frustration, or do you see them as a gift? It's easy to focus on what people are doing wrong, isn't it? It's easy to notice the things that annoy you, the things that don't go your way. But if you want to change your relationships, you've got to change how you see the people in your life. Start looking for the good. Start paying attention to the things they do right. Maybe your spouse isn't perfect, but they've got some wonderful qualities. Are you noticing those? Maybe your kids drive you crazy sometimes, but they also bring joy into your life. Are you acknowledging that? Here's something I've found to be true. When you focus on the good in others, they tend to show more of it. It's almost like what you focus on expands. If you're always criticizing, always pointing out the flaws, guess what you'll keep seeing? More flaws. But when you start to appreciate the good, when you express gratitude for the things people do right, suddenly your relationships begin to shift, and the people in your life start to feel appreciated, which makes them want to do even better. It all comes back to perspective. The way you see the world shapes your world. If you're always looking for problems, you'll find them. If you're always looking for opportunities, you'll find those too. If you're focused on what's lacking, you'll always feel like something's missing. But if you focus on what's already abundant, you'll feel rich, no matter what your circumstances are. So how do we make this shift? How do we go from a negative perspective to a positive one? From a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance? It starts with awareness. You've got to catch yourself in those moments when your perspective is working against you. Challenge yourself to find a new way of seeing things. What's the lesson in this situation? What's the opportunity? What can I learn here? What can I be grateful for? If you start thinking this way, I guarantee your life will change. Key.